Anna Nicole had methadone. Daniel, the testimony suggested, had access to it. And the specific documented reality is that a 20-year-old who was not a regular opioid user took a combination of drugs, including a powerful opioid that was prescribed to his mother, and his body, with no tolerance for it, could not survive the combination. A Bahamas jury would eventually rule that Daniel died from an accidental drug overdose. The seven-member jury, deliberating for less than 2 hours, recommended no criminal charges. Accidental, no charges. A 20-year-old boy, dead in a chair beside his mother's hospital bed. 18 days after Daniel died. 18 days after Anna Nicole tried to climb into her son's coffin. After she had to be sedated to leave the hospital, she participated in a commitment ceremony with Howard K. Stern. The 5 months between Daniel's death and her own, what those months looked like, what the people around her did and did not do, and the specific, documented question of who was responsible for the woman who had just lost the most important person in her life, is coming. When a famous mother and her son both die of prescription drug overdoses 5 months apart, the world demands answers. The answers, in this case, were complicated, contested, and ultimately unsatisfying. The first battle was over Anna Nicole Smith's body. It was a spectacle. Broward County Circuit Court Judge Larry Seidlin presided over the hearing to determine where Anna Nicole Smith would be buried, and turned it into a televised circus, weeping openly on the bench, rambling, and at one point breaking down in tears as he announced his decision. The fight was between three parties: Howard K. Stern, who said Anna Nicole had wanted to be buried in the Bahamas next to Daniel; Larry Birkhead, the man fighting to prove he was Dannielyn's father; and Virgie Arthur, Anna Nicole's estranged mother, who wanted her daughter buried in Texas. The judge ruled that the decision belonged to the guardian, appointed to represent the interests of 5-month-old Dannielynn, and the guardian chose the Bahamas. Anna Nicole Smith was buried in the Bahamas, beside her son, mother and son, together, in the ground in Nassau, in the country where Daniel had died in a chair beside her hospital bed. The second battle was over Dannielynn, the paternity dispute that had begun before Daniel even died. Howard K. Stern listed as the father on the birth certificate. Larry Birkhead insisting the child was his was finally resolved by science. In April 2007, a DNA test confirmed that photographer Larry Birkhead was the biological father of Dannielynn, with a 99.99% probability. Stern, who had been listed as the father and had cared for Dannielynn since her birth, conceded the results without contesting custody. Larry Birkhead was declared the father. Howard K. Stern said he would not fight for custody. Birkhead took his daughter home. And the third battle, the one that took longest and produced the most heat, was over who, if anyone, was criminally responsible for Anna Nicole Smith's death. 2 years after her death, in March 2009, the California Attorney General charged Howard K. Stern and two of Anna Nicole's doctors, Dr. Sandeep Kapoor and Dr. Christine Eroshevich, with conspiring to illegally provide her with controlled substances. The Attorney General called Stern the principal enabler. Prosecutors alleged that Smith was victimized by her boyfriend and doctors who provided her with a lethal amount of prescription drugs, that many fake names had been used to obtain the medications, some in the name of her lawyer boyfriend, Howard K. Stern. Fake names to obtain the drugs. This is the specific, documented allegation that the people around Anna Nicole Smith were not protecting her from her addiction but feeding it, that the medications that killed her were obtained through a conspiracy that used false identities, that the woman who had lost her son and was spiraling in grief was surrounded by people who supplied rather than intervened. In 2010, Stern was found guilty of conspiring to commit the crimes of prescribing administering, and dispensing controlled substances to an addict. He was convicted. And then, in the specific way that this entire story refuses to resolve cleanly, the conviction was thrown out. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Robert J. Perry vacated the felony charges, citing a lack of evidence and what he believed was a basic unfairness in the charging of the case. He said Stern was charged because he was a public figure. The felony convictions was dismissed twice, in 2011 and again in 2015. After those highly publicized trials, Stern never stepped back into the limelight again. No one was ever definitively held responsible. Not for Daniel, not for Anna Nicole. 2 deaths, 2 accidental overdose rulings, 1 overturned conviction, and a lingering, unresolved question about how a mother and her son both ended up dead from prescription drugs within 5 months of each other, while surrounded by people whose job, at least nominally, was to take care of them. But there is one person in this story who survived. Dannielynn, the baby who was 3 days old when her brother died, 5 months old when her mother died. The child at the center of the paternity dispute, the inheritance battle, the burial fight. Larry Birkhead took Dannielynn home and raised her, deliberately keeping her out of the spotlight that had consumed her mother and her brother. And here is the detail that matters most. Larry Birkhead, who had pleaded with Anna Nicole to stop using drugs while she was pregnant, who had fought through the courts to prove he was Dannielynn's father, who watched the woman he had loved die 5 months after her son, made a decision about how to raise his daughter. She reminds me of her mother more and more every day, Birkhead said, but I'm determined to ensure that our daughter takes a different path from her mother's. A different path. That was the whole goal, not the cameras, not the reality show, not the spectacle that had turned Anna Nicole Smith into a national punchline and pulled her shy son onto a stage he hated. A normal childhood, a father who showed up, the specific, unglamorous protection that neither Anna Nicole nor Daniel had ever received. Dannielynn grew up in Kentucky. She went to school. She was photographed occasionally at the Kentucky Derby with her father, wearing a gown that echoed one of her mother's, but she was not consumed. She was not turned into content. She was not asked to produce. She was allowed to be a child, the one thing nobody had allowed Anna Nicole to be, the one thing nobody had allowed Daniel to be. There is a pattern at the center of this story that goes deeper than the 2 overdoses, deeper than the bathtubs and the hotel rooms and the prescription bottles. A pattern that connects Anna Nicole Smith to her son, and connects both of them to the specific machinery that built her and consumed her. What that pattern actually is, and what it tells us about who Anna Nicole Smith really was. Beneath the spectacle, beneath the punchline, beneath everything the world decided she was, is coming. There is a detail this video has been building toward since part 1. When Anna Nicole Smith was 5 years old, she became obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. Not in the way that children are obsessed with celebrities. Not in the way of a little girl who wants to grow up to be a movie star. At 5 years old, Anna Nicole Smith was obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. But instead of telling her parents she wanted to be like the famous bombshell, she said she wished to be her. And at the age of 39, Smith got that wish. She did not want to be like Marilyn Monroe. She wanted to be Marilyn Monroe. Her close friend said she really felt that maybe she was Marilyn's reincarnated daughter. There was a deep bond between her and Marilyn, a 5-year-old girl in Mexia, Texas, abandoned by her father, growing up with nothing, looked at the most famous tragic blonde in American history and saw, somehow, herself. And the resemblance was not an accident, she discovered later. It was a destiny she chose. Here was a woman who had modeled her life so closely on Marilyn Monroe's that doing so eventually helped drive her to her death. The blonde waves, and the fake breasts, the pill addictions, and the airheaded pronouncements about men and sex and diamonds. The years spent tumbling down the rabbit hole in search of somebody with cash willing to play at being Daddy, the Playboy cover, and the occasional moments of bleak honesty that nodded at some formative abuse. Every piece of it. The platinum hair. The Playboy cover. Monroe was on the first one. Anna Nicole made it her goal. The breathy voice. The pursuit of older, wealthy men. The pills. And the death before 40. Like Monroe, Smith was the daughter of an absent father, the product of an unhappy home, and the alleged victim of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse. This is the pattern. A girl is abandoned by her father. The abandonment creates a wound, a specific, bottomless need for the security and the love and the validation that the missing father represents. She spends her whole life trying to fill that wound with attention, with fame, with older men who can play the role the father abandoned, with the specific, insatiable hunger to be noticed that she described herself. I didn't get very much growing up, and I always wanted to be noticed. And the thing she fills it with, fame, money, the pursuit of being the most desired woman in the world, does not heal the wound. It cannot. The wound was made by a father who left, and no amount of public adorations replaces a parent who was supposed to stay. So she reaches for the pills, to quiet the wound that the fame could not heal. And the pills eventually kill her, just like they killed Marilyn, the idol whose life she had chosen to repeat. Now, here is the part of this pattern that makes Anna Nicole Smith's story not just sad, but tragic in the specific classical sense of the word. She passed it on. Daniel Wayne Smith was born to a mother who had been abandoned by her own father. He was raised in the specific instability that Anna Nicole's wound created. The poverty and the riches, and the poverty, again, the reality show, the chaos, the mother who told everyone she was going to die young. As a family friend put it, for a kid having to worry about her all through the years, seeing her experience poverty, riches, poverty again. Daniel inherited the instability. He inherited the proximity to drugs, the methadone that was in the house, prescribed to his mother, that he had access to. He inherited the specific, documented anxiety of a child whose parent is consuming herself and who can do nothing to stop it, and he died of it. 5 months before, his mother died of the same thing. The wound the absent father created in Anna Nicole did not stop with Anna Nicole. It traveled to her son. The way these wounds always travel. From the parent who could not heal them to the child who absorbs them before they are old enough to understand what they are absorbing. And here is the honest thing this video wants to say about who Anna Nicole Smith really was. She was not the punchline. She was not the gold digger the tabloids made her. She was not the airhead the reality show packaged her as. She was not the spectacle that the world consumed and discarded. She was, in the words of the people who have examined her life since, one of the first superstar casualties of the 24-hour news cycle. A woman whose every health struggle, every personal tragedy, every moment of pain was packaged into entertainment by an industry and a public that found her suffering more compelling than her humanity. She was a girl from Mexia who got everything she thought she wanted and discovered it did not fill the hole. She was a mother who loved her son more than the fame, more than the money, who said the best gift she ever received was a plaque he made. She was a woman who, in the final analysis, wanted one thing more than all the others. For 3 days in 2006, from September 7 to September 10, Anna Nicole Smith was a mother to 2 children. Motherhood held as much significance for her as fame did. Her desire to be the world's hottest woman was only commensurate with her certainty that she should be a mother. 3 days. For 3 days, she had both of her children alive at the same time. Dannielynn, newborn. Daniel, 20, holding his baby sister. And then Daniel died. And the only thing Anna Nicole Smith had ever wanted more than fame, to be a mother, to be loved and to love limitlessly, to have the family that her own childhood had denied her, was broken in half in a hospital room in Nassau. She lasted 5 more months, and then she followed her son, just like she had followed Marilyn. There is one final question this video has not asked, not about the overdoses, not about Howard K. Stern or the doctors or the inquest. The question about what Anna Nicole Smith and her son Daniel deserved. From the industry that built her, from the people who surrounded her, from a world that watched 2 people die and called it entertainment, and what the honest accounting of that responsibility looks like, is coming. Let me tell you what this video has actually been about. It has not been about the overdoses. The overdoses are where the coverage always goes, the specific, documented symmetry of a mother and son who died the same way, 5 months apart, both from prescription drugs, both ruled accidental. The bathtubs got Whitney Houston and her daughter. The hotel rooms and the hospital rooms got Anna Nicole Smith and her son. The overdoses are where the coverage goes, but the overdoses are not where the story begins. The story begins with a little girl in Mexia, Texas, whose father left. A girl who grew up with nothing, who dropped out of school at 15, who worked at a fried chicken restaurant, who had a baby at 17 and named him Daniel and built her entire fragile world around him because he was the one person who had never left. A girl who looked at Marilyn Monroe, another girl abandoned by a father, another girl who chased fame to fill a hole that fame could not fill, and decided at 5 years old that she wanted to be her. And she got her wish, all of it, the platinum hair, the Playboy cover, the desperate pursuit of older men with money, the pills, the death before 40. She got everything Marilyn had, including the ending. This video has been about the specific, documented cost of a culture that takes a wounded girl and turns her wound into entertainment. Anna Nicole Smith was wounded before she was ever famous. The father who left, the poverty, the alleged abuse. The wound was already there when she walked into that strip club in Houston and met the billionaire who would change her life. And the culture that built her did not heal that wound. It exploited it. It put her on a reality show that existed to document her decline. It turned her weight and her incoherence and her grief into a spectacle that millions of people watched and laughed at. It packaged her suffering as content. It made her, in the words of the people who have studied her life, one of the first superstar casualties of the 24-hour news cycle. And it did the same thing to her son. Daniel Wayne Smith did not choose any of it. He did not choose to be born to a mother with a wound she could not heal. He did not choose the poverty and the riches and the poverty again. He did not choose to be put on a reality show he visibly hated, to have his shy, camera-averse face broadcast to a nation that was tuning in to laugh at his mother. He did not choose the methadone in the house. He was a sweet, quiet boy who wanted to meet his baby sister. He flew to the Bahamas even though he wasn't feeling well because his mother wanted him there and he wanted to be there. He held Dannielynn. He told his mother he loved her. He fell asleep in a chair beside her hospital bed, and he never woke up. He was 20 years old. Now, I want to leave you with 2 things before you go. The first is Dannielynn, the baby who was 3 days old when her brother died, 5 months old when her mother died. The child at the center of all of it, the paternity dispute, the inheritance fight, the burial battle, the spectacle. She survived. Because Larry Birkhead, who had pleaded with Anna Nicole to stop using drugs, who fought through the courts to claim his daughter, who watched the woman he loved die, made one decision that changed everything. He kept her out of the spotlight. He raised her in Kentucky. He sent her to school. He let her be a child. He gave her the specific, unglamorous, ordinary protection that neither Anna Nicole nor Daniel had ever received. He gave her a different path. The one thing her mother had wanted, more than the fame or the money, to be loved and to protect the children she loved. Larry Birkhead actually did. For the daughter Anna Nicole did not live to raise. The second thing is a question. Anna Nicole Smith died at 39. Daniel Wayne Smith died at 20. Marilyn Monroe, the woman Anna Nicole chose to become, died at 36. 3 people, 2 generations. The same pattern, the same wound, passed from a parent who could not heal it to a child who absorbed it. The same drugs, the same culture that watched it all happen and called it entertainment. The pattern is not a mystery. It is documented. A father leaves. A wound forms. The wound goes looking for fame, for love, for security, for anything that will fill it. The fame arrives, and it does not fill the wound. It exploits it. The pills quiet the wound that the fame could not heal, and the pills eventually end the life. And if there is a child watching, a child absorbing the instability, the proximity to drugs, the specific knowledge that their parent is being consumed and cannot be saved, the wound travels to Daniel, the way it traveled to Anna Nicole from her own absent father. This video is going to leave you with the question that the coverage of Anna Nicole Smith's spectacular, chaotic, tabloid life never paused long enough to ask. Not what killed her. We know what killed her. But what does the world owe to the wounded people it turns into spectacles? What does it owe to the shy boy in the background of the reality show, the one covering his face, the one nobody ever thought about? What does it owe to the next girl, abandoned by the next father, who looks at the last tragic blonde and decides she wants to be her? Because the culture that built Anna Nicole Smith has not answered that question. It built the spectacle. It consumed the spectacle. And when the spectacle was over, when the mother and the son were both in the ground in the Bahamas, it moved on, the way it always moves on. Leave me your answer below. I read every single one. If this video said something about Anna Nicole Smith, the person beneath the punchline, that the tabloids never said, please share it. Because the world remembers Anna Nicole Smith as a joke. This video was about the wounded girl underneath, and the son she loved more than all of it, who she could not protect, because no one had ever protected her. This is Mary of Shadows. Thank you for being here. There is a photograph from September 2006. A woman is in a hospital bed in Nassau, the Bahamas. She has just given birth to a daughter 3 days earlier. She is one of the most famous women in America. A Playboy Playmate of the Year, a guest model, a reality television star, a tabloid fixture whose face has been on magazine covers for over a decade. Her name is Anna Nicole Smith, and sitting beside her hospital bed, visiting his newborn half-sister, having flown in the night before, is her 20-year-old son. His name is Daniel Wayne Smith. According to the people who knew them both, Anna and Daniel were inseparable. Daniel was, without question, the most important person in Anna's life. He had flown to the Bahamas to meet the baby. He spent the night in his mother's hospital room, and on the morning of September 10, 2006, 3 days after his mother gave birth, in a chair beside her bed, in the maternity ward of Doctors Hospital in Nassau, Daniel Wayne Smith stopped breathing. An autopsy concluded that the 20-year-old had methadone, Zoloft, and Lexapro in his system. The combination produced a fatal cumulative effect on his central nervous system. He was 20 years old. He died in his mother's hospital room, 3 days after she gave birth to his sister. Anna Nicole was so distraught at the loss of Daniel that she refused to leave his side. It was necessary to sedate her in order to check her out of the hospital. They had to sedate her, to remove her from the room, because she would not leave her son's body. And here is the detail that this video is going to examine from the first frame to the last. 5 months later, on February 8, 2007, Anna Nicole Smith was found unresponsive in a hotel room at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. She died at the age of 39. The cause was combined drug intoxication. The same kind of death, the same combination of prescription drugs, the same accidental overdose ruling. 5 months after her son, mother and son, both dead before their time, both from the same kind of toxic prescription cocktail, both leaving behind the specific, documented question that the inquests and the investigations and the years of tabloid coverage have never fully answered. I am Mary, and today this channel is going to tell the story that the tabloids did not tell. That the coverage of Anna Nicole Smith's spectacular, chaotic, headline-generating life never paused long enough to examine not the story of the gold digger, not the story of the playmate, not the story of the billionaire marriage and the Supreme Court case and the reality show, the story of a mother and a son who were, by every account of the people who knew them, the only stable thing in each other's lives. And what happened to both of them when the world that had built Anna Nicole Smith into a spectacle stopped watching the people inside the spectacle. Dannielynn Smith was 20 years old. Anna Nicole Smith was 39. They died 5 months apart, and nobody protected either of them. Before the hospital room in Nassau, before the billionaire and the Supreme Court and the reality show that made her chaos into entertainment, there was a girl in Mexia, Texas, a high school dropout working at a fried chicken restaurant, who had a son at 17 and built her entire life around him, the childhood that shaped Anna Nicole Smith and the son who was her anchor through all of it, is coming. To understand what happened to Anna Nicole Smith and her son, you have to understand what she came from. She came from nothing. She was born Vicki Lynn Hogan on November 28, 1967, in Houston, Texas, and raised, after her parents' marriage dissolved, in the small town of Mexia, about 80 miles south of Dallas. She was abandoned by her father, raised with neglect. Her parents divorced when she was very young. The father left. This is the foundational fact of Vicki Lynn Hogan's childhood, and it is the fact that every psychologist who has examined her life afterward returns to. Her case provides a clinical example of how paternal absence structures psychological functioning throughout adulthood, an abandonment that produced an anxious attachment and an insatiable quest for a reassuring father figure that would explain her later relational choices, from her marriage to an 89-year-old man to her addictive spiraling. The father left, and the girl spent the rest of her life looking for the security his leaving had taken. She dropped out of high school at age 15 and worked full-time at a local fast food chicken restaurant, Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken, in Mexia, Texas. That is where the most famous Playboy playmate of her generation began. Behind the counter of a fried chicken restaurant in a small Texas town, a high school dropout, with no money and no father, and no particular reason to believe that her life would be anything other than what the lives of girls in her circumstances usually were. And that is where she met Billy Wayne Smith. She was 17 years old when she married Billy, a then 16-year-old cook at the same restaurant. Two teenagers, both working at a fried chicken restaurant, both with nothing. They welcomed their son, Dannielynn Smith, on January 22, 1986. She was 17 years old when she had Daniel, a child having a child, and the marriage did not survive. The relationship between his parents grew increasingly toxic. I wasn't allowed to go out of the house or go to the store. He was so jealous, Anna Nicole later said. The couple separated in 1987, when Daniel was barely a year old. Now, Here is the part of the story that the later mythology of Anna Nicole Smith would obscure. The early years with Daniel were not idyllic. When Daniel was just 6 months old, Anna Nicole left her young child in the care of his maternal grandmother in Houston, Texas. Reports indicate the two were barely in contact throughout Daniel's early years. She left him with her mother because she had to work. Anna worked odd jobs and even performed as a stripper at a local club to provide for her young son. This is the specific, unglamorous reality of a teenage single mother with no education and no money in late 1980s Texas. She did what she had to do to put food on the table, which meant working jobs that kept her away from her son, which meant leaving Daniel with her own mother, Virgie, for stretches of time, which meant that the bond between Anna Nicole and Daniel was built not on constant early presence, but on something more complicated, on the shared experience of poverty, on the shared experience of being the only two people who fully belong to each other, on the specific, fierce attachment that forms between a young mother and the child she had when she was barely more than a child herself. The child who was there, before the fame, before the billionaire, before the chaos, the one person who knew Vicki Lynn Hogan before she became Anna Nicole Smith. And it was while she was stripping, working at a Houston gentleman's club to support Daniel, that everything changed. She met J. Howard Marshall, a Texas billionaire oil tycoon, at the club where she worked as an exotic dancer. He was 63 years older than she was. He fell for her immediately. Marshall paid for her breast enhancement, photographers, publicists, bodyguards, agents, attorneys, and various other staff to enhance her career. And in March 1992, the girl from Mexia, who had been working at a fried chicken restaurant 6 years earlier, appeared on the cover of Playboy. She was paid $20,750 for the cover and centerfold, a considerable amount for someone who had grown up financially insecure. The next year, Hugh Hefner named her Playmate of the Year. She changed her name from Vicki Lynn to Anna Nicole. She became a guest model. She became, in the specific, rapid way that 1990s celebrity worked, a household name. And through all of it, the Playboy cover, the Guess campaign, the international fame, the billionaire marriage in 1994 to the 89-year-old Marshall, the spectacular wealth and the spectacular legal battles that followed his death 14 months later, there was one constant, Daniel. She once told People magazine, "The best present he ever gave me was this plaque he made that says, 'I love you, Mom. Your son forever. Your son forever.'" He made her a plaque. And of all the things Anna Nicole Smith accumulated, the money, the fame, the magazine covers, the billionaire husband, the Supreme Court case, the thing she named as the best present she ever received was a plaque her son made that said he loved her. As Anna Nicole Smith's fame grew through the 1990s and into the 2000s, as the Playboy model became a reality television star, as the chaos of her life became entertainment that millions of people watched every week, her son Daniel was pulled into the spotlight alongside her, a shy boy who could not stand the cameras, a teenager who appeared on his mother's reality show and visibly hated every second of it. What the spotlight did to Daniel, and what it cost a boy who never asked to be famous, is coming. In August 2002, premiered The Anna Nicole Show. It debuted on August 4, 2002, and ran for 2 seasons, 26 episodes, until October 2004. The premise was simple, and it was cruel. By 2002, Anna Nicole Smith was no longer the stunning young Playboy model who had appeared on magazine covers a decade earlier. The focus of the series was on the fact that Smith had gained weight after falling out of the public eye, no longer received regular modeling or acting work, and was in a precarious financial state after lavish spending sprees and the ongoing battle against her stepson for her deceased husband's fortune. The show was built around her decline. It was built around the specific, documented spectacle of watching a woman who had once been one of the most desired models in America become, in the language that the tabloids and the show's own marketing used without apology, a train wreck. She crashed a bar mitzvah and dirt danced with the birthday boy to the horror of guests. She was arrested for battery at the Beverly Hills Hotel. She made public appearances in which she was incoherent. She became a tabloid staple and ate it all up. The reviews were brutal. Critics called it a drug-addled new low. They debated among themselves whether she was really as drug-numbed as she appeared, or whether the only possible appeal of the show was watching a train wreck. Watching a train wreck. That was the entertainment. That was what millions of people tuned in to see. A woman who had grown up with nothing, who had clawed her way out of a fried chicken restaurant in Mexia, Texas, who had been abandoned by her father and was looking for security her whole life, being presented to America as a strung-out punchline. And standing beside her, in episode after episode, on camera, in front of the millions of people who were tuning in to laugh, was her son. Daniel was 17 years old when the show began. The only bright spot on the show was seeing how much she loved her grown son, Daniel. He was sweet and shy in front of the cameras. Sweet and shy. He did not want to be there. Anyone who watched the show could see it. Unlike the Nepo babies who would later become reality television fixtures, Daniel Wayne Smith could not stand the spotlight. Nonetheless, he was thrust into the public eye at a very young age, a dynamic that often left him floundering. There is a specific, documented moment from the show that people who have written about Daniel return to again and again. At one point in a session, Anna Nicole urged Daniel to hold his head up, but he raised his hand to cover his face. When he told his mom he was feeling nervous, she grinned and replied, "Oh, don't be nervous." Daniel appeared absolutely humiliated. He covered his face. He told her he was nervous. And the cameras kept rolling. Because the cameras did not care that Daniel was nervous. The cameras did not care that a 17-year-old boy was visibly humiliated, hiding his face, asking, in the only way a shy teenager knows how to ask, to not have to do this. The show needed content. Daniel was content. Now, here is the honest thing this video wants to say about Anna Nicole's role in this. She loved Daniel. This is not in dispute. Every single person who knew them confirms it. The plaque, the "Your son, forever," the way her face changed when he was in the room, the way she described him as the most important person in her life. The love was real and enormous and uncomplicated in a way that very little else in Anna Nicole Smith's life was uncomplicated. But love and protection are not the same thing. And Anna Nicole Smith, who had been abandoned by her own father, who had been looking for security her entire life, who had found fame, the attention she had craved since childhood, and could not give it up, even when it was destroying her, brought her shy, camera-hating son onto a reality show that existed to document her own decline. She did not protect him from the cameras. She could not, because the cameras were how she survived. "I didn't get very much growing up," she once said, "and I always wanted to be, noticed." She wanted to be noticed. She had wanted it since she was a little girl in Mexia with no father and no money. And the price of being noticed, the price of the reality show that kept her relevant and paid her bills and fed the specific, bottomless need for attention that her childhood had created, was that her son had to be noticed too. A boy who wanted the opposite of attention, a boy who covered his face. While Anna Nicole was being documented in her decline, the weight gain, the incoherence, the trim spa endorsement, the spectacle, Daniel was watching. Smith became a spokesperson for Trim Spa, a transparently dodgy caffeine-heavy diet supplement. She had lost around 69 pounds. She wore a rhinestone trim spur necklace to the 2004 Billboard Music Awards, where she stumbled on stage and asked the audience if they liked her body. She stumbled on stage. She asked if they liked her body. And the people who wrote about it noted the spectacle and the sales figures and the comeback narrative. They certainly didn't think much about how his mother becoming a nationwide punching bag would impact Daniel. Nobody thought about Daniel. Nobody ever thought about Daniel. He was the sweet, shy boy in the background. He was watching his mother be turned into a joke, and he was, by every account, deeply affected by it. According to a Smith family friend, Anna Nicole used to tell everybody, "I'm going to die young." These declarations hurt Daniel. As the friend put it, that's fine for her. But for a kid having to worry about her all through the years, seeing her experience poverty, riches, poverty again, she told people she was going to die young. And her son heard it. Her son, who had been worrying about her since he was old enough to worry, who had seen the poverty and the riches and the poverty again, who had watched his mother become a national punchline on a show he was forced to appear on, carried that. The knowledge that his mother expected to die young. He carried it from the time he was a teenager. By 2006, Anna Nicole Smith's life had become a swirl of chaos that was almost impossible to track. A Supreme Court case over her dead husband's fortune, a new relationship, a pregnancy, a move to the Bahamas, and a son who was struggling in ways that the people around them were beginning to notice. What was happening to Daniel in the months before September 2006, the warning signs, and the specific, documented night he flew to the Bahamas to meet his baby sister is coming. By 2006, Anna Nicole Smith's life had become almost impossible to track. She was still fighting for J. Howard Marshall's fortune, the legal battle that had begun when the 89-year-old oil tycoon died in 1995, 14 months after their marriage, and had wound its way through the courts for over a decade. In February 2006, the case reached the United States Supreme Court. Anna Nicole Smith, alongside her son Daniel and her attorney Howard K. Stern, was photographed leaving the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington. There is a photograph of that day. Anna Nicole in the center, Howard K. Stern on one side, and Daniel, the shy boy who hated cameras, now 20 years old, on the other. He was at the Supreme Court with his mother, because he was always with his mother. As Stern would later testify, she was very close to Danny. Almost every time I saw Anna Nicole, she had Danny with her. Almost every time. The mother and the son. The two people from Mexia who had started with nothing. Still together, still inseparable. Even at the Supreme Court of the United States. But Daniel was struggling. Anna Nicole's former boyfriend, Larry Birkhead, would later testify that Daniel was a troubled young man who struggled with drugs and alcohol. He had lost weight. He was breaking curfew. He was, by the accounts of the people around him, depressed in a way that had been deepening for some time. He had been prescribed antidepressants, Zoloft, and at some point Lexapro. He was a young man carrying the specific accumulated weight of having grown up as Anna Nicole Smith's son. The poverty and the riches and the poverty again, the reality show he hated, the mother who told everyone she would die young, the cameras that never stopped. He was 20 years old, and he was not okay. Meanwhile, his mother's life was accelerating toward chaos. On September 7, 2006, Anna Nicole Smith gave birth to a daughter, Dannielynn, in New Providence, the Bahamas. She had moved to the Bahamas during the pregnancy. The circumstances were already complicated. The paternity of the child immediately became a subject of dispute between Howard K. Stern, Smith's live-in partner, listed as the father on the birth certificate, and Larry Birkhead, her former boyfriend, who insisted the child was his. Several other individuals also claimed to be the father: a newborn daughter, a paternity dispute, a Supreme Court case, a move to a foreign country, and a 20-year-old son back in Los Angeles who was struggling and depressed and who wanted, more than anything, to come meet his baby sister. Daniel had just flown from Los Angeles to the Bahamas to see his mom and meet his new sister, but hadn't been feeling well. As the director of one of Anna Nicole's films later told People, they weren't sure if they should put him on a plane, but Anna wanted him to be there, and Daniel wanted to go. They weren't sure if they should put him on a plane. He hadn't been feeling well, but Anna wanted him there, and Daniel wanted to go, so he went. He arrived in Nassau late on September 9, where he met his little sister and embraced his mother at the hospital. He met Dannielynn. He held his baby sister. He embraced his mother. He embraced his mother and sister and told them both that he loved them. He told them he loved them. And then, exhausted from the flight, not feeling well, in a hospital room with his mother and Howard K. Stern and the newborn, Daniel went to sleep in a chair beside his mother's bed. He spent the night in the room, and on the morning of September 10, 2006, he did not wake up. Nicole Smith died in his mother's hospital room at Doctors Hospital in Nassau, just 3 days after she had given birth to his half-sister. He was 20 years old. He died in a chair, next to his mother's hospital bed, 3 days after his sister was born. The night after, he told his mother he loved her. What happened next is one of the most documented and most painful scenes in the entire Anna Nicole Smith story. Anna Nicole's lawyer, Michael Scott, told People that she refused to leave Daniel's side after he died and had to be sedated in order to check out of the hospital. At his funeral, Anna Nicole reportedly attempted to climb into her son's coffin. She tried to climb into his coffin. The woman who had described Daniel as the most important person in her life. The son who had been with her since she was 17, who had been there before the fame and the money and the chaos, who had made her a plaque that said, "Your son, forever," could not accept that he was gone. They had to sedate her to remove her from the hospital. She tried to get into his coffin at the funeral. Now, here is the part of this story that has never been resolved. Daniel was not known to be addicted to opiates, nor did he show signs of tolerance that could indicate he was a methadone user, according to the lab director who testified at the inquest. He took a large number of pills. The methadone is the question that has never been answered. Methadone is a powerful opioid, typically used to treat opioid addiction or as a strong painkiller. Daniel was prescribed antidepressants. He was not, by the testimony at the inquest, a known methadone user. So where did the methadone come from? Larry Birkhead testified that a bottle of Anna Nicole Smith's methadone had disappeared from her Los Angeles home around April 2006, and that a review of the home's security videotapes showed Daniel had taken the powerful prescription painkiller.